The grip levels and traction levels are absolutely nuts. Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and I'm here at Audi Shrewsbury, part of the McGovern Auto Group, to drive this 2021 Audi SQ7. This thing is a monster. And you know what? Fast SUVs like this is a 4-liter twin-turbo, 500 horsepower, 568 pound-feet of torque powertrain. Fast SUVs like this were not on my radar for a long time, and I've always been a wagon guy, except back in the day when BMW started with the X5M, it kind of showed the world what could be done with these big platforms. We've come a long way since then, and let's just first start it up, because this sounds really mean. We might as well have the soundtrack while we take our walk around it. And that's in normal mode. Sounds okay, right? Put it in dynamic. And the car also lowers when you toss it into dynamic mode to lower that center of gravity. Let's take a look under the hood. In typical modern car fashion, you're not gonna see a whole lot, just a big foam and plastic cover to keep that injector noise down. But you know what? As far as Audis go, that engine isn't as far forward as I anticipated. So I'm excited to see how it handles in the corners. 4.3 seconds to 60. There's something about driving a family hauler light to light that can school every other sports car on the road. Inside, this cabin is very well insulated. It's warm, it's happy. I love these seats. That's something that Audi does really well. Beautiful stitched leather. This is nice. I definitely recommend not doing black when you get new cars. Please, 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 at least option something slightly more interesting. It's too easy to just go with the black on black. Don't do the German rainbow silver, white, black, although the car does look really good in this white color. Interior, you gotta get a little more interesting. They have options. You'll notice we're littered with LCD displays in these cars now, and they have this haptic touch even in the rear with this climate control. Now, it's not quite the same as up front. When I hit these, I get oral feedback, but I don't get haptic feedback. So this one's not haptic, those are haptic. You can actually feel the ka-thunk on your finger. And of course, we've got the nice rumble of the quad exhaust. Although these tips are fake, they're not directly connected to the exhaust. They are actually coming through there, so we'll give it to them. There's worse fake fascias out there than this. This is actually relatively honest. You can tell we've got the tow package on this one. This thing's ready to take your boat or race car. With the third row folded down, there is tons of space back here. I'm digging the rubber pad, although, you know, you're making a choice when you put this back here because you are covering that third row. But that would definitely work for me. Chances are I'm never using that third row. But enough about that. Let's take it out for a drive. That's really what matters. One thing this particular car does not have is the Sport Package. And the Sport Package gives you a limited slip rear differential and some pretty trick sway bars. That's gonna put the price closer to $100,000 though, and you'll probably get over that if you're going to be adding other options. So the question is, do you need to go that far? I mean, look, if you're buying this as like a real performance vehicle, then sure, you're gonna wanna option out the Sport Package. It's all-wheel drive, so that limited slip isn't really the most exciting thing in the world to me, but what is those sway bars. I think that would flatten the car out quite a bit in the corners, but you know what, for most people, they're not going to be driving this vehicle the way I might be driving this vehicle. When you're idling in dynamic mode, the rumble, fantastic. The grip levels and traction levels are absolutely nuts. We've got 285s all around on this car. It's a square setup. And with the all-wheel drive system, you can just plant your foot. It's sorting everything out so cleverly. I'm not feeling it pull torque on me in any noticeable fashion. There's certainly a bit of body roll. That's to be expected. I mean, that's not a great piece of pavement, and it's just gobbling it up like nothing. Let's give these brakes a little test. Phenomenal. That's the thing, man. It's crazy that you can put your entire family and stuff, go on a trip, and eat up a corner the way this does. I'm shocked by the front end grip. I don't know how it does that. There's BMW cars that don't enter a corner like that. In typical Audi fashion, the paddles behind the steering wheel are not the most impressive. This thing is genuinely fast. I mean, it's wet, it's salty, it's cold. I can't believe that it feels okay doing this. This is amazing. This is amazing. Let's see how she does. That's a lot of torque. That is a genuine heaping spoonful of torque. That is fantastic. All right, let's get out of this crazy dynamic mode. I want to see how she is just as a normal comfort machine, because that's kind of how you're going to use this most days. You're just going to drive it to work. You're going to pick up your kids from school. And if your kids are bad, you scare the crap out of them. Or maybe they're good and you scare the crap out of them. I don't know which, but either way, all I want to do is fill this car with my friends and drive like a psycho. This is really comfortable. It's soaking up the bumps, but it's not numbing me from the world. And one thing I've got to really give Audi credit for right now is the steering. Their steering is so intuitive. And I don't like the word sporty when I talk about steering, because sporty usually means that it's like over the top. It's outrageous, and it's not. And BMW's big issue right now is that their steering does not feel this good. Their steering is more comfortable. And on the limit, on the edge, BMW, sorry I passed that guy in the road. He's doing like 62 miles per hour, but I'm getting off here. BMW's steering just tends to feel so much more comfortable, and there's almost this like laziness when you're kind of cruising along in a straight line. It feels great mid-corner on edge, you know what's going to happen. But I gotta say, Audi has really dialed in the balance between a comfortable luxury car and a sporty feel that lets me know what's going on the road. I don't give Audi enough credit. All right, I gotta turn us back to dynamic mode, because like, I'm not driving this car for that long. We've got to enjoy it for all she's worth. I have to check those gear ratios. It feels like there's a big gap between second and third. Third suddenly is like, yep, we're in highway gear. We're taking you to 100. The digital displays are great. It gives me all the information I need. Obviously, we've got a nice bold tachometer front and center with our speed, but over here we have our oil temperature. I like that. I like knowing what my oil temperature is for a lot of reasons, but number one is just to know, is it okay to open the taps? Obviously, we've got our coolant temperature, our water temperature over on the left, but that's really what lets me know if it's okay. We've also got a boost gauge. Slightly unnecessary, but fun to look at nonetheless. We are in a turbo V8. Got to take a weird line to avoid the bumps. We don't want to crack a wheel on a brand new SQ7. Oof. Okay, so these brakes. I like these brakes. There's a little bit of softness to the beginning. The initial bite leaves a little bit to be desired, but if you dig into them far enough, they're there. I will say, though, they're not like the most confidence-inspiring at a glance. I think you get used to them, you warm up to them. They clearly function. There's no question about that. It's more just, do you feel like it's there for you waiting when you get into that pedal? And I have this minor sense of, and then it's there, and then it's there. It's all there. I'm usually very hesitant to applaud LCD touchscreens as radio controls and climate controls. Audi is probably the only one who's done it in a way that lets, I feel like I'm 100 years old when I use this stuff. Like, I might as well be using a jitterbug, honestly. And I like knobs, I like buttons. And so when I get into these cars, sometimes I get really lost and confused. This is really straightforward, really easy, and it's And it looks, I don't know, I gotta be careful about this. It looks like a relatively timeless design. It's not too futuristic looking. While it is definitely forward thinking and innovative, I don't look at this and think, oh, in 3, 4, 5 years, this is totally, gosh, don't need it. That's garbage. No, I think this is gonna stand up to time because it's not too fancy. Unless we get really crazy haptic stuff in the future that just like puts this to shame, which I don't know. Are people making better feeling touches? Probably, but I don't think this would be eliminated just because of that. Can you tell I'm from New England? I always look at something and say it's nice and then explain why it's not bad. If I was from the Midwest, I would just say, this is really nice. Isn't it nice? Instead, I look at it and say, this is really nice. Here's why it's not terrible. S-Class and a Bentley. Over the summer, I spent a week with an X7 M50i, and I really enjoyed that car, that SUV. It wasn't what I expected, and it was more than I expected, and it kind of illuminated me to what was going on in this kind of segment. These are heavy vehicles. This is over 5,000 pounds, and it's shocking what can be done from a performance standpoint. And it's nice that you don't have to sacrifice fun and driver pleasure just because you're getting an SUV. On the other hand, you might say it muddles the market because, hey, we should be buying lighter, faster wagons like the RS6, even though I don't know that's that much lighter. But still, that's where the enthusiasts would come in and say, no, SUVs, you've got to get a car, you got to get a wagon. Look, the market's just not buying those. So I'm not disappointed that we get SUVs like this, because this is still incredibly fun. And we have a tunnel, or as much of a tunnel as we could ask for. All right, let's go back to comfort mode. Take it on some less pleasant roads. I want to see how it handles the bumps. So now we've raised the suspension up a little bit. I've got more ground clearance, and I'd anticipate we're a little bit softer. I can certainly feel everything. Not a bad thing. Audi isn't trying to insulate you from the world in this car. It's certainly luxurious and nice to be in, but the ride quality is such that this feels like a driver's car, more so than I anticipated. I really wasn't expecting this. I gotta say, I'm genuinely surprised about this vehicle. This is just a lot of fun, and if you put a lineup of cars with like an X5 and X7, I might be choosing this if we're gonna go through some twisty roads. I mean, granted, those cars are certainly capable. Oh, gotta love trash day. This thing really hustles, and I can feel everything. It doesn't numb my senses. And just like all the German brands, when you get into base model Audis, if you get into like a Q3 or Q5, they're really not gonna wow you. The same way BMW doesn't really wow you when you get into a base model 3 Series or an X3 or something. It just doesn't really do it for you. But if you opt for something like this, like X3M Competition, X5M, SQ7, suddenly the brand's technology and the brand's ethos really enters the room. And unfortunately, you do have to pony up the cash for that. This one, as it sits, is about $90,000. Not a small price tag for your family hauler. But if you want what the brand can really offer, it is, in fact, the price of admission. The way this just sits on its hind legs when you get on it is really, really something special. When I first got in it, I felt like the seating position was just a little bit high. Not in an unsavory way, but I thought I'd be able to get a little bit lower in this vehicle. BMWs have allowed you to get like on the floor. Those are like the only cars, that and Porsche, that I actually have to bring the seat up a little bit, because then I'm like a little old lady trying to look over the dashboard. So I was a little surprised this doesn't go lower, but it's not uncomfortable by any standards. I'm still in a nice place, and I have a ton of headroom, so I understand it. it. But I think I've been spoiled by some other vehicles in the segment which like let you basically sit on the floor. In dynamic mode, when you're sitting at idle, the rumble is such that it's actually translating through the chassis. If my foot is on the floor, my foot is actually vibrating from this exhaust right now. So look, I've really got to say I didn't anticipate the SQ7 to be as engaging and driver focused as it is. This is a treat. This is actually a genuinely enjoyable vehicle to drive. It's far more balanced and neutral than I anticipated. And it's kind of a muscle car. This thing is really fun. So thank you so much to Audi of Shrewsbury, part of the McGovern Auto Group, for tossing me the keys to this beast. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive. And I will see you in the next one.